Hey, what's going on there, guys and gals? What the hell is this thing? In today's video, we are going to try and answer the age-old question: is the ZZR1400 a sport bike or is it a sport tourer? Let's get right into it. Yeah, guys and gals, in today's video I'm going to try answering a very difficult and confusing question surrounding what this motorcycle truly is. Now, a lot of you in the comments have defiantly and ferociously been arguing that this motorcycle is a sport tourer, and that is the end of the conversation. But I'm really sorry, guys, I beg to differ. I'm going to give you a few reasons why this motorcycle is a thoroughbred sport bike in today's video, and I'm going to give you a few reasons why this bike can be confused as a sport tourer. So let's get on the wicked ZZR1400, let's go for a ride, and let's see if we can answer this question definitively. Yeah, I can understand why this is a confusing motorcycle. And look, if you guys are looking to buy one of these motorcycles, I want you going into it knowing exactly what this bike is. And believe me, some people that own these motorcycles, they really don't give them enough credit. These are sport bikes, guys, okay? These are sport bikes. Now, I know a lot of you are going to know that already, but this is just to clarify for a few people that are getting mixed messages from YouTubers, from commenters, from reviewers. Trust me, it is a sport bike. And recently I released a video on the what to expect the first time you get on one of these things. And look, if you come from a sport touring background like I do, then you're going to notice straight away that this is not a sport tourer. All right, let's go. Alright, so probably we should start off this video by explaining exactly what a sport bike is and exactly what a sport tourer is. Now, this is going to differ between person to person and your experiences, but my definition of a sport tourer is a motorcycle that is very comfortable, has a nice spongy seat, is in a very neutral seating position, and it has that sport bike look. But of course, it won't have that sport bike performance that everyone knows and loves. So if you are looking for a motorcycle that looks like a sport bike, it might even sound like a sport bike, but is very, very comfortable, then that is more than likely a sport tourer. A sport bike, on the other hand, is a race bike with headlamps. Literally, if you look at a World Superbike motorcycle or a MotoGP bike, then you guys know exactly what I'm talking about right there. And of course, a lot of the time these motorcycles are peak performance for their class, so these manufacturers are going to try and squeeze as much performance as they possibly can from a specific engine size. On the Japanese side of things, you're looking at 600 cc's, you're looking at 1000 cc's. Those are the main battlegrounds for performance on sport bikes, for that sport bike platform. So where does the ZZR1400 come into that? Alright, so the very first reason I'm going to give you why this is a sport bike, think about it this way. Suzuki's Hayabusa, this motorcycle's main competitor. Ask yourself what you think that motorcycle is. The vast majority of people will say that the Hayabusa is certainly, without a doubt, a sport bike. So why would Kawasaki make a competing motorcycle not a sport bike? It wouldn't make much sense, at least not to me anyway. The fact that this motorcycle is comfortable for a sport bike, well, that speaks absolute volumes about the genius in how Kawasaki have designed this sport bike, and it's one of the reasons why so many people get it confused with a sport tourer, because of how comfortable it is. And trust me, it is a really, really comfy bike. But that's the first reason. Kawasaki would not make a competitor to the Hayabusa if it wasn't a sport bike. Now, the second reason is this bike already has a Sport Tourer counterpart. Those of you that live in the United States, it is a Concours 1400. Those of us that live in Europe, in the UK, it is a GTR 1400, a Kawasaki GTR 1400. That is a very similar platform to this motorcycle and has, I believe, the same engine, but it is detuned, and it is shaft driven as well, and it does have more of a Tourer look to it, but it still has the sport bike fairings and all that stuff. But that is a Sport Tourer. That is the Sport Tourer variant of this motorcycle. So why would Kawasaki make two Sport Tourers? Yeah, you've got to ask yourself that question. They wouldn't make two Sport Tourers with the same engine, just one with a load more horsepower. You know, it doesn't make much sense. The third reason is pretty simple. All you have to do is go to the Kawasaki website. You have to go to the United States version of the Kawasaki website, because unfortunately Kawasaki do not sell the ZZR1400 in the UK anymore from brand new, so they don't actually have it on their website as of, I think, the middle of last year. But yeah, if you go to the USA version of the Kawasaki website, see if you can find where the ZZR1400 is in there, or otherwise known as the ZX-14R. That's what it is known as in the United States. You'll find that it is in the Super Sport section of their lineup. So why would Kawasaki have a Sport Tourer in advertised in their Super Sport section? Also, the naming scheme. Kawasaki's sport bike range is a ZX range. So you've got the ZX-6R or ZX-6R, you've got the ZX-10R, and you've got the ZX-14R. So that also indicates that this is a sport bike through and through. That is what Kawasaki want you to think of this bike as. They want you to think of it as a sport bike, without a doubt. It might not rev as high as one of these super sports like a 600, a ZX-6R or a ZX-10R. It might not rev as high, it might not produce as much peak horsepower as a ZX-10R anymore. It used to produce more horsepower, but of course nowadays these companies are developing their 1 litre range more and more, their 1000cc range, to basically do all the exact same things that this motorcycle can do in terms of performance. And nowadays you're going to get a better power to weight ratio on a ZX-10, for example, than you are on a ZZR or on a Hayabusa for that matter, and the GSX-R1000. And that is another video that I will recommend to you guys, our heavyweight versus super heavyweight videos. And in that I go through the main differences between the 1000cc sport bike class and the super heavyweight classes of the likes of the Hayabusa and of course this ZX-14 ZR1400. So yeah, definitely go and check out that video. But it is very, very interesting the way how so many people think of this motorcycle as a sport tourer. And look, I can understand why that is. Like I said earlier, it's very comfortable. It's surprisingly comfortable. I remember when I had my CBR 600RR from Honda, I would go from riding that to riding this bike, and I'd be blown away at how much more comfortable this motorcycle is compared to what people would consider a super sport or a sport bike in the 600RR. So yeah, the comfort is certainly one of those things that will confuse you. The rev limit is also one of those things, like I mentioned earlier, doesn't represent what you'd normally class as a sport bike. You know, it doesn't have that high revving engine. I mean, it revs out, it says here 11,000 RPM, but I've got it well over 11,500 RPM in the past. But that's the thing, guys, you can use this motorcycle for touring. That's the most confusing thing about this bike. You can tour with this motorcycle. You can have your wife or your girlfriend, your partner on the back, on the pillion seat, and you can tour. It's quite remarkable what Kawasaki have done with this bike. You can use it on a track day. Yeah, it handles like a sport bike, so it handles really well, except of course it is a little bit heavier than a 1000 or a 600, so you do have to take that into account if you are going to take this on track days. But yeah, you could certainly use this motorcycle on track days. And yeah, you can commute with this bike as well, which is crazy to think that you can commute with a motorcycle like this, a massive beast like this. But yeah, this is why it's such a confusing motorcycle, because yes, you can tour with it, and yes, you can consider it a sport tourer depending on what it is you intend to do with this motorcycle. You know, if you do intend on doing long journeys, which this bike can certainly do, you can pile on the miles on one of these things, then yeah, you can class it as a sport tourer. But for anyone else that is using this motorcycle to have a blast on the weekends, like I do, then it's a sport bike. I'm sorry to say, guys, it is a sport bike. Yeah, I'm not sure if I mentioned this already, but you are certainly sitting in a sport bike position. You are not sitting in a sport tourer position. Any of you that have ridden sport tourers before, a great example is a Ninja 650 or an ER6, then you will know that that is a sport tourer, because it is a completely different seating position, even though you've got all of the fairings and you've got that sport bike look. And Kawasaki don't really help themselves with the branding of their motorcycles. I have to say that if you are someone that doesn't quite understand the difference between a sport tourer and a sport bike, when you go and look on the Kawasaki website, it does look very confusing. So when you go into the sports section of the USA website, you've got motorcycles such as a Ninja 400, a Ninja 650, and of course the 1000 SX. Now these are all sport tourers, and they're branded, they're classed under the sport range. But bikes like the ZX-10, the ZX6, and of course the ZZR, they are classed as super sport. So that's really the difference, guys. That's a sport bike. These are sport bikes, and the Ninja 650, Ninja 400, bikes like that, they are sport tourers. And look, when you sit on them, you'll know straight away whether or not it is a sport bike or a sport tourer, without a doubt. You can get certain motorcycles that are designed as a sport tourer, but they do have more of a sporty seating position, but it's not like this. With this one, you are leaning over the fuel tank a lot more than what you would on an Ninja 650, for example, without a doubt. Now, there was a viewer that watched our heavyweight versus super heavyweight video, and they said that the ZZR and the Hayabusa, or well, they might be referring just to the ZZR here, but the ZZR is a completely different bike to, say, a ZX-10R. Now, I can understand where this viewer is coming from, as they are going to be a different experience between the two, even though they're both branded as sport bikes. This is not a race bike. This is a sport bike, but it is not a race bike. It's kind of like in that weird middle ground between a super sport and a sport tourer. It's a bit of both, and again that does add to the whole confusion of it all. But anyway, guys and gals, I hope that I've answered that question. You know, I wanted to come out today and give you guys a definitive answer about what this motorcycle really is, and I hope I have answered that question. Believe me, guys, if you have ridden sport tourers in the past, then you will know that this is not a sport tourer in any way, shape or form. It doesn't feel like a sport tourer, it doesn't ride like a sport tourer, it doesn't even sound like a sport tourer. Now, I'm sure this video is going to get a few dislikes, and I'm sure there are going to be those of you out there that are going to argue against what I've said. And look, you're more than welcome to put your thoughts in the comments, guys and gals. I encourage it. I want to know your thoughts in the comments. I want you to tell me, convince me why this motorcycle is a sport tourer and not a sport bike. Tell me why, enlighten me. I am certainly open to the idea of classing this motorcycle as a sport tourer, but at this point, I don't class it as a sport tourer whatsoever. Kawasaki don't want it to be a sport tourer. They want this motorcycle to be a sport bike through and through, but a more street oriented sport bike. Now, I've always maintained that this is not a race bike with headlamps. This is a sport bike that is designed for street use. I've always maintained that as my opinion of this motorcycle and what I would personally class it as. And I'm sure that the Hayabusa class from Suzuki's end is also in that same category, although I can't really comment on the Hayabusa as I haven't ridden one yet. But I'm sure that when I do get an opportunity to ride one, that it's gonna have a very similar feel to this kind of bike. Loads of horsepower, loads of performance, loads of torque, sport bike looks, a sport bike seating position, but for the street. That is what I think this motorcycle class is, and I think that is why so many people love these kinds of motorcycles, as you do get kind of like the best of everything. You get the best of sport bikes and you get the best of sport tourers. You get a sport bike that is purely for street use, or at least it's been designed for street use. But anyway, guys and gals, that will do for today's video. As always, make sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy our content and you would like to support the channel. Now, we're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of March. I think it's going to be finite. I think this video is going to come out maybe towards the end of March, so we are slowly getting up there. But come on, guys, if you watch these videos and you enjoy what we make, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure, if you want to see more of this wicked ZZR, that you hit that subscribe button, you hit that like button, you leave a comment about how wonderful you think this motorcycle is, and let me know how much you really, really want one. Trust me, it's one of those bikes you do want. But anyway, guys and gals, thank you again ever so much for watching. We will catch you all in the next video. I hope you're all doing well.